Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight to the episode 5 of Finding the Why. Tonight we have a special guest, Cliford Zulu, who will be joining us about halfway through. He is a sculptor and assistant curator to the National Gallery of Zimbabwe. So we're so excited to have him on. Finding the Why is hosted through Tebbs Gallery through Zoom by artists Sarah Hardy and Kirstie Tebbs. And we began it to kind of like not only help you guys find your why, but also help us find our why as professional practicing artists. We come together to form a community, to build relationships and disrupt elite systems that are there around. We do weekly live streamed podcast talks about everything art, strong opinions, honest talks, book reviews, and fun art challenges. If you want to us to discuss any of the news that is happening, if you want to get in involved with the art challenges, please do, and please let us know. Tag us, send us a message. We will reshare what you send us. There we go. I had another technical issue there. It's all sorted now. So this on Saturday, it is World Environment Day, which actually the gallery is hosting a 3-hour panel discussion between 4 artists and their art practice about how they work sustainably. And yeah, so if World Environment Day means anything to you, or if this week is holding anything like World Hot Dog Day, which is important to you, let us know as well. We love to hear what days there are. Yeah. So one of the art news that we've had this week is that there are 3,000 artists that are having their artwork sent to the moon in December. Mark Hein is an artist that have 2 pieces of his artworks which are about the ocean's life, which will be going to the moon, and rather ironically is going to be displayed in the Lake of Death. But
yeah, sorry, go on.
You carry on.
No, I was just going to say, like the work's been kind of it's based on Homer's Odyssey. Of the characters are abstracted from sirens, and I don't know if you kind of looked into any of the work, but it's so beautiful and ethereal. And apparently, what's happening is the work's going to be compacted down into a digital compressed edition, and it's going to be sent up on, I think it's called the Peregrine Landed, to the moon. And yeah, it's kind of it's one of them things you kind of wonder about, when things are happening the way they are, and then kind of making it an important mission to have work kind of rocketed up to the moon. It's kind of a bit of a bizarre concept, unless somebody's going up there anyway and the work's just going with it. But I mean, even the artists, I think there's about 3,000 artists taking part in this in one way or another. But yeah, I think one of, I think it's Mark Hein's comments was it's kind of quite a weird concept having your artwork literally off the planet. But he wanted to inspire the youth through this work to be kind of, to be environmentally, sustainably kind of, thinking in that manner, and kind of inspire them to be kind of almost planet saviors, which is really nice. And, obviously it's an important thing to be forward thinking and, amidst the current climate crisis. So, yeah.
I completely agree with that. Like, his work is almost magical, the way that he paints, and the actual concept that it's all based off of are such important factors that we need to talk about, especially with marine life. I mean, water is the reason that, well, one of the reasons that life is able to live on this earth. And if we don't look after it, well, we may as well say goodbye as a species. And two thoughts have come to my mind since reading these articles, that I've been following different artists that have been popping up saying that their work has been selected. And I mean, it really does cause the question, millions of pounds they spend to put it in a rocket up to the moon, and for what? Like, who is it? It's not going to be seen. Like, realistically, it's not going to be seen. So what is the point other than to do it just because we can do it? Like, why can't we funnel that money into something that will help the planet, help us as humans, and just be able to have necessities? The money could have been put into such better place, but it is a really exciting opportunity, and if I was offered, I'd still say yes.
Yeah, it is almost satiating a novelty, I think. But yeah, but it at the end of the day, it's serving an absolute minority, because how many of us are ever going to get up to the moon? But for the artist, yes, it's a big thing, and to have that in the news and be a part of it must be quite phenomenal. But kind of going back to Mark's work, what I really love is kind of because it's been part of a book that he's been working on. He's been kind of working the paintings and the book side by side, and the fact that he's actually connecting people to it and actually giving the sea a kind of personality and the environment a voice. And when you can kind of emote something like that and make that connection and start to feel something for it, that's when people become proactive. Do you know what I mean? When they actually start to get it and start to care and start to think, it's almost like that light bulb moment. So yeah,
I have to say it's one of the most successful things about this whole adventure really for these artists. Mark Hein is probably part of the spotlight of the artists going up there, because he really does have that sentiment for caring for the planet, and he is making people care with it and helping them to grow in an emotional level, to start loving the planet a little bit more with all of its wonders, just through art. And it's one of the reasons art is so important, and it just makes you remember that it's a talking point, it's a starting point for people to have serious discussions and start to think.
Day to day, I think, because life is life and people get caught up in whatever life they're living, they forget how utterly amazing and how utterly spectacular this planet actually is. You only have to look up at the sky some days to be like, oh my God. And we are such a minute part of it as individuals, but in our everyday life, in our everyday actions, we all contribute, and we can either contribute in a good way or a bad way. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of, I suppose it's tying that all together with kind of mindfulness about how we're living and what we're actually bringing to the table, dare I say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not one of business terms, don't like business terms.
We'll invent our own. Bring to the chair.
And we'll never, ever touch base.
And then our next one is in New Zealand. A PhD student, Gabby OConnor, has created a community art installation from about 15 meters of rope, where she's joined the community through schools and socials to create this installation to bring to the forefront the idea of climate change and the waste in the marine oceans. It's the point to make people start caring about their oceans and how important it is, especially around New Zealand and Australia. Their marine life is just so critical to this planet.
Yeah, apparently she's been hosting workshops since about 2017, and already she's worked with, she's done about 700 workshops, reaching out to local students and kind of asking them to get involved and researching. And again, it's great because it's kind of reconnecting people with their environment and what's around them and what really matters. So this kind of, I suppose it's almost a culmination of all of the research and the development and the time spent studying the environment that's come into this, she actually asked them to draw what their findings with rope, which is kind of phenomenal, really. You can, but it just goes to show you can literally draw with anything. And she's gone around the community, and this current workshop is going to be held in several different places. So what's distinguishing from one community or one area from the next are the cable ties that hold it together. So every kind of body of work or kind of contribution to the work has a different colored cable tie, which
it's great.
Yeah.
She's an absolutely formidable woman. I have so much respect for her, and I think she started her studies in 2014. So for such a short time to do all hundreds and hundreds of workshops, getting communities all together and rallying around an important subject matter through art, through community art, and doing a project together, it's just phenomenal how she's been able to do it. And I mean, she's going to do absolutely amazing things in the future, as well as what she's doing now. And what she's doing is just so important. And it's not just art and workshops, it's educating. She's educating everyone that she possibly can that we really need to start thinking, and we need to start doing it now.
Absolutely. And it's another shining example of where science comes together with art and is kind of put out into the community, and again, people start to kind of have that light bulb moment and start to kind of understand and take action. So yeah, it's as you say, absolutely formidable.
Yeah, it's such a fantastic project. And our next story is a little bit closer to home. I'll pass it over to Sarah for this one.
Thank you. So yeah, this is kind of all about rubbish art. And when we say rubbish art, we don't actually mean stuff that you throw in the trash. So apparently Glasgow has this, it's called CAN, and it's actually the Circular Art Network that kind of, it takes in all scrap materials or waste, kind of, any materials from companies that they can't use or they're excess to their requirements. And basically CAN keeps them in storage, and they're accessible to artists. And yeah, just to repurpose for any particular art project or anything creative. Now, what I really like about this is that I suppose I've been in a situation myself whereby you kind of, you end up in a situation, you kind of, oh, what can I use? I haven't got access to my usual drawing materials, my usual painting materials. And actually sometimes when you go looking, just for inspiration, kind of places like this are just invaluable, because all of a sudden it starts you thinking on a whole different level. It makes you so much more innovative. You put the time into just kind of having a look around. At one point I was using broken mirrors, broken glass, obviously not of the sharp variety, that there's certain glasses that are kind of quite blunt that you can use. But yeah, and the things I was coming out with were so different to what I'd normally produce just with, my usual pens and paper or paints, oil paints, acrylic paints, whatever. So I can totally see like the value in this. Plus it's actually utilizing the waste that would otherwise just go to landfill.
It's so fantastic how it's a countrywide scheme for a charity to set up. I mean, here in England, we have it on a really small scale, whereby like places like the University of Hertfordshire, they pay a charity for their students to be able to access this materials for lower cost if you don't have money, or even for recycling and donating. But it's not there on a countrywide scale. Yeah, there's Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, but people don't go there for that sort of thing. So for this to happen in Scotland, it's absolutely fantastic how they're making it work and how successful it has been.
Absolutely. I was reading that already the National Theatre of Scotland, the National Gallery of Scotland, Glasgow School of Art and Edinburgh Uni have already accessed and kind of, they're kind of commending it. It's just a really, really good idea.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they're getting recognition, they're getting a lot of big bodies backing them because it is something that's needed, and it will really help out not just artists that don't have the money, but also it helps the environment, because that's one less piece of material going to the landfill and just wasting really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's been backed by a property development investment group, and they've kind of given, you know, their excess plasterboards, timber, other materials, so things that you might never even think about, you know, necessarily as an artist. But as I say, if you're presented with them and it all of a sudden, if you're that way inclined, it does start the mind working in a completely different way, which is great. It can produce all kinds of results. So yeah,
it's fantastic. So shall we move on to the book review?
Yes,
we'll do that, and then we will be going on to the fantastic artist and assistant curator, Cliford Zulu, where we will interview and just have a nice discussion with him. Did you want to go first?
I don't mind. Sorry, something keeps on popping up on my screen. It's quite distracting. Let's just sort that out. Okay, there we go. So basically, with it being World Environment Day on the 5th, I thought I'd choose, I can't speak. There goes my tongue again. A book that's more environmentally oriented. So I have this wee little book that I bought on a trip to Scotland in a wee little bookshop. And I love bookshops. I can't keep myself away from them. But yeah, it's a tiny little book made on recycled paper, and it's by Greta Thunberg. And it's called No One is Too Small to Make a Difference. Within this book, it basically gives you the story of Greta and the processes she went through to get to where she is, a bit about her schooling. I think initially she'd won a writing competition called I've had to write this down, the Svenska Dagbladet writing competition. I really hope I've said that right. And after that, she was there was a collaboration with a lot of other young kind of winners of that prize. And it was basically, they sat down and they had discussions about, potential ideas that could make a difference to the climate crisis. And then, of course, she went on to do her protest outside of the Swedish Parliament. She talks about her Asperger's and how that's actually a gift, because it gave her a whole different way of viewing what was going on and her perspective and that kind of urgency. It was kind of now, we need to do something now. And yeah, she talks about her parents' book and how, I think that's called Scenes from the Heart, and how the profits from that went towards various charities for climate, for children diagnosed with, things like Asperger's, animal rights campaigns as well. And she also talks about, she gives some facts and figures, some quite hard-hitting facts and figures about climate change. And one of them was that kind of the EU alone needs to reduce their emissions by 80% by 2030, which is a hell of a lot, but it's just it's right across the board, the way we live, the transport we use, the products we use, where we import them from. And, there's a whole lot in the equation of the climate crisis. But at the end of the day, we all have to commit to doing something. And I think some people are still in denial. There's some people who think, well, what difference will it make if, with just me? But the thing is, if everybody thinks like that, then we aren't going to make a difference, because we are all, you know, very, very capable of making a difference to the state of the world. And as I say, we have a choice. We can positively contribute, or we can negatively contribute, or God forbid, we become very apathetic and we kind of, you know, we sit borderline going, oh. But yeah, it's a really interesting book. She talks about the Paris Agreement and the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and, you know, their stats and figures. But overall, I felt like it was kind of an urgent dose of straight talking. As I say, the way her delivery, it's just like, right, no, come on, guys, we need to start something now, not tomorrow, but now. We need to start thinking, you know, properly about what's going on here, and the fact that we're actually destroying our home, you know, and beyond that, it's kind of really selfish, because we all share this place, so we're just destroying each other. And essentially, I mean, kind of my thoughts on it sometimes are, we're kind of stuck living in fear about the wrong things. You know, you get people kind of thinking, oh God, but I'll never have enough money to buy that car, or to do this or to do that. And the way we really need to start thinking is, oh my God, you know, we need to preserve this planet now, because we're living on it and we all share it, and because we all matter and the planet matters. And it, you know, life can be very, very simple when you choose it to be, or it can be really difficult, and you can overcomplicate it with far too many materialistic things. So yeah, that's my synopsis of the book.
It sounds fantastic, and that's just another formidable woman. Like, she's been sexualized, she's been tried to be diminished and put down, and she goes, no, this is so important that no one will ever stop me from talking out about it. And her book just sounds incredible. I mean, especially for such a young woman, her research into this is just phenomenal, and the way that she puts facts across, it's like you go, oh my God, because you don't realize how bad a state this world is, and how far we really, really do need to come in such little time. Which fingers crossed we will.
Yeah I think it just takes people to start waking up. You know, there are things that matter in this life, like life, and the things that don't really matter that much, like Amazon and Netflix, although I suppose some of them have got us through, you know. But yeah, kind of wider than that, they were probably terrible examples. Sorry.
I like them.
You know, kind of materialistic kind of element of life.
And my book is about the one and only David Attenborough, Planet Earth. He's an absolutely amazing man, which his love for the earth and putting his points across is just so inspirational to watch and read and listen to in all of his documentaries that he's done. And what this book is filled with is just stunning high quality photographs of the world that you may never usually, if we can see, background, it disappears. In a world that you may never see, and it shows you the importance of travel and getting your knowledge up about culture, because it's so true. We are all interconnected in this world. The world, you can't just destroy one place and it not affect another place. All of us have to put the same amount of effort in, and that's what's so important about this book and why I've chosen it today, because it doesn't just pick one part of the world like Sahara or the oceans. It is literally widespread, beautiful photographs of nature, and it's just so filled with so much information. And I have to say, my absolute favorite animal that I found in here is the sea snail. It's just absolutely amazing. And he's worked with people to get photographs of the earth, not just from the earth level, but also from outer space, so we can actually see what our world looks like and the damage that we are actually causing it. So absolutely amazing book, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's a wonder, and you're just amazed at the beauty that this world can hold. And it's maybe want to go to some of these places and experience it myself, which, you know what, it's detrimental to the environment because I'd have to fly there. So I guess there's always pros and cons to showing the wonder of the world, not just good because so it's not just good that it's trying to make us think about the environment, but it's also so I've got technical issues. There we go.
Oh.
Sorted. Yeah, it's also got that detrimental effect where people are then going to suddenly want to go there, and all of a sudden it's tourist hotspots, all these planes with the petrol, and you almost then damage the spot as well as the environment. But it's an interesting book. You can experience these wonders from a distance in photographs.
Yeah, I think he's an absolute national treasure. And he's kind of awoken a lot of people up and stimulated their imagination and kind of, you know, reconnected people again with the environment. I met a guy on an airplane once. Yes, an airplane. And he was probably about 20 years younger than David Attenborough, but he'd been trekking in the Galapagos in Ecuador, in the Galapagos, which is a place I've always wanted to go. And I was telling him about Africa, and he was telling me about, you know, his trip. And the thing is, the world will always need explorers. And I think it's good to, I mean, the thing is with some people like just traveling for the sake of traveling and just seeing stuff and having a holiday, which to a certain extent, you know, we all like a bit of downtime, a bit of chill time. But I think lockdowns proved you can do that here, you know, staycations and stuff. We have some amazing places on our doorstep. But at the same time, kind of traveling with an intent and a purpose is, I think, is slightly different because you have an aim and you know, it's about contribution. And I have this dilemma myself because, you know, we've spoken about like what I go away to do and how I work. So it's like the environmental impact is something that I think about. I tend not to just kind of, you know, go on long haul flights or anything like that just for the sake of a holiday, but to actually, you know, work with projects and stuff like that. So yeah, I sometimes do feel a bit bad, but usually as well when I'm away, I'm not trying to justify this, but you know, I just get on the transport. I still walk where it's safe and stuff like that. So I think sometimes there are maybe you know, ways of offsetting it a bit.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know kind of how much more I can say on that.
I'm sure you could say much more. But it's true, David Attenborough has had such a lifetime in making us open our eyes and wake up and understand what we are doing. And this is where I think the world should be grateful we have someone like Greta Thunberg, because she is literally just coming out there and hitting you a hard fact. She's telling you that you need to do something, and what we've done is not good enough. We've come far but not far enough. And she really is like the next David Attenborough for the world. She is. She's just so needed.
Yeah, as I say, I think people needed a dose of tough talking, and you know, it's admirable. What, you know, I don't want to say a girl so young because that sounds undermining, and that's not my intention at all. But to have the nous and the guts to get up there and say what she did and kind of draw attention to herself, even though she might not have been feeling so kind of confident, perhaps, is like, it shows real strength of character and is very, very admirable.
It's true. And she's really bringing to light that why should it matter your gender, your age, or conditions you may have? She has something important to say, and we can learn a lot from her. It doesn't matter if she was 14 or if she was 76. Like, what she's saying is important, and she's done her research. She knows what she's saying. We should all listen, and we should all start changing.
Even just small changes to your daily habits can make a huge difference in the grand scheme of things. So,
definitely.
So should we bring on our guest?
I think we should do. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Boys and girls.
Anybody and everybody. We would really like to introduce to you our good friend and associate, Cliford Zulu, who is a sculptor and assistant curator of the National Gallery. Hello, Clifford.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So good to see you. It's been too long.
Oh, great.
Good. How was your day?
I've had a very hectic day today. Nothing out of the ordinary. Things tend to get busy here. And so the president was in town. He came through to the gallery. And you know, when a president of an African country comes to your space, everything moves, the city stops, and everything kind of like stops. So at least I was able to be there, and I'm back now, safe and sound.
We really appreciate your time. Yeah, it's obviously a really big thing, and you've been landed with quite a day having to come straight to this afterwards. So we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Would you like to tell us a bit about your role in the gallery, and maybe just start with your role in the gallery?
Okay, so maybe I'll just be bringing in a couple of things as I go. So I trained as a sculptor, wood and stone, and from here to there I also do some bones. I discovered that there were a lot of bones lying around in the country. So I started sculpting on bones. Unfortunately, I couldn't load my images. Internet here can be funny sometimes. But when I was doing that, when I was sculpting as an independent studio, in my independent studio, I realized that there was a gallery in the city, but that gallery was not necessarily kind of like working for the artists. And so I and my colleagues started to ask questions after reading a couple of magazines and going through the internet and finding out what other galleries are doing. So we questioned what our gallery is doing, which turned out to be a museum, something between a museum and a gallery, because we do keep a collection. Until we were heard, and until we started to force changes so that galleries begin to work with artists. And then I joined the gallery. I must say that it was quite a shock, because I was only interested in being an artist, a practitioner, and arts administration was something that I never dreamt about. So I then joined in. I said, okay, I'll try this. If it's going to help artists and the audiences in the city, fine, I'll be able to do it. So I started off in 2006 as a visual arts development officer. You know, it was like a big title. I had no idea what that meant, but I did join in, and I began to visit artists in their studios and asking them if they are interested in exhibiting their work at the gallery. Because Zimbabwe, like many other African countries, we are coming from a colonial era. So galleries were a preserve of only the white people. So people were quite now familiar with a building and say, no, that you don't go in that building. It's not for you. So after visiting artists in their studios, and obviously the younger generation, because we have another older generation that has been practicing for years. So they were used to being asked, come at a particular time and go back home. And it will be, there wasn't that kind of freedom for artists to just walk into a gallery and say, hi, I feel like doing a show, can we start talking? Yeah, until I got elevated to be an assistant curator for the National Gallery of Zimbabwe, and I'm responsible for curating at the National Gallery in Bulawayo.
That's amazing. That's absolutely fantastic.
That's fantastic.
And again, you know, it's kind of what this podcast is about, is kind of, you know, I suppose trying to take down that elitist system and kind of disrupt it and kind of find a way through for everybody, really, because there are so many people at the top of the tree who just aren't interested in kind of the people who are up and coming. So yeah, it's a great story to hear, and kind of, yeah, I'm really pleased that you could join us and kind of express it on here. Would you like to tell us a bit about kind of your inspiration behind your own work?
Right, so when we were trained, so maybe I finished school, we have all levels here, most similar in the UK. So, you know, being in Zimbabwe, your parents expect you to be either a doctor or a nurse or a lawyer or a pilot, you know, those kind of like, you know, top jobs. So I opted to do art, and it was like, what? No, you know, that's not a career. It's something that people do and they are not happy. And it was quite a struggle. They did push me into various industries. I ended up working in a refinery factory at some point, and I couldn't, you know, I used to just pick up things within that space and start creating works until I was fired, basically. So when I was back home, I then enrolled at a local communal vocational training center, where I then found myself in a bit of a comfortable space because there were other similar crazy people like me, you know, as it were, in the townships. And I began to practice sculpture from clay to, there is soapstone. It's like a soapstone that you can carve even using your sharp object or a knife, and then there are different types of stones that people do carve on. So my comfort zone was mostly wood, because where I am in Bulawayo, which is in the southern part of the country, mostly it's wood. And we basically, being Zimbabwe, there was an abundance of wood. You know, there are forests. You walk in here, just out of the city, you're in the bush. So we started carving then. Basically, we were trained to meet a tourist market. We never did art more in a conceptual way. We were only trained to do curios and then take them to the market. When the tourists come, they buy, and you earn a living, and life goes on. So coming to the gallery and reading a lot about the functions of the gallery and the role of an artist in the society kind of like gave me a different understanding. In relation to the topic, then I began to understand, what does it mean to chop a piece of wood and do a sculpture and then sell that artwork without being involved in the process of replenishing this wood? Because, you know, you chop down a wood that has been, what, 30, 50 years old, and then you just do a few curios and sell. So it's a source of income. Now, so wood has been my comfort until I understood the effects of what it means to use wood for your artwork. Then I began to switch to stone. You know, you just find stones in most places and then start carving. And then those were my comfort zones for the better part of my practice until I joined the gallery. So there I had to make a choice to say, do I want to continue back in the studio, or do I want to now focus on arts administration? And then curating came a little bit later. So yeah, I sculpt from issues around, you know, Bulawayo is full of stories. I I was interested in history. So I was interested in how do I take Zimbabwean history, especially the Liberation War, into pieces of artwork, into pieces of stone, and then put it out there and begin to discuss about those artworks. So for a better part of my practice early, I then found myself exhibiting outside Bulawayo in places like Harare. Fortunately, we were so adventurous. My stream, we would then go to places like Nairobi, Zambia, and different African countries to see what other young people are doing there. And then I realized that we are more or less in the same boat, and we're all struggling with the narrative of who we are and why we're doing this. What happens if there's no tourism market? Do we still become relevant in the society? So I'm still interested mostly in issues that have to do with history, and all my work are based on that.
That just sounds fantastic. I love the journey that you've come on. In itself is really inspirational. Like, no one's journey is just a straight line. We all zig and zag to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, great. And I know life in Zimbabwe still isn't particularly straightforward, even for artists, is it? Or I say even for artists, but kind of with regards to free speech and political things.
We always joke about it now. We say that living in Zimbabwe must be added into your CV because it's a nightmare. One morning there's a new currency, the next morning you're using US dollars, the next morning there's new legislation banning you from doing this. So Zimbabweans have become people that have so creative. We are a multi-currency economy. We use 4 or 5 currencies, and for any visitor who comes through to the country, the first couple of days are a nightmare because you pay in US dollars, you get change in South African rands, and you go and do your banking in other currencies. But these are Zimbabweans, these are people that have been fortunate to have a very interesting or good education system. And so you do find a lot of Zimbabweans are quite well educated, and they do kind of like work things out faster before the politicians do. And then the politicians will have to follow through what the populace is already doing. So because if a small section of people decide that tomorrow we're using the Botswana pula, and the rate will change and respond to that. So in the past couple of months, we were now becoming comfortable using the US dollar as our major currency. And then just a few days ago, the government enacted another statutory instrument in banning businesses from receipting in US dollars. What that means now is that all businesses are switching into the Zimbabwean dollar. And we've had different currencies. I think at some point I was a billionaire, a trillionaire, and a quintillionaire. Things that we never knew existed. We ran out of zeros for our calculators on computers, and it's I don't even know how to describe it. So surviving in Zimbabwe as a Zimbabwean is a nightmare, and as an artist, it's crazy, it's good, it's fantastic, I don't know, but we just keep going every day. And funny enough, we are still up and we are still running. This evening I was running around and everyone was like, where the hell are you going? I'm going into the city because we have got these frequent power cuts. So I need to be in the city so that I have got uninterrupted, connections. Things like these are still preserved for a few people. In Zimbabwe, we talk about internet. What? No, we're not interested in things like that, except only since the coming in of COVID. Now everything is online, schooling, everything, and suddenly everyone has a mobile phone and everyone is connected.
Certainly a very resilient nation. Even when I was over, and is the load shedding still as bad? I mean, obviously, I'm so pleased you've had rain since.
Well, load shedding is over now. The new dispensation, new in the sense, is still the same political ruling party. But the new president kind of like has come through and stabilized electricity, stabilized pricing, and began this mission of re-engaging Zimbabwe with the rest of the world. We've come through an era of Robert Mugabe that kind of like crippled the country to its knees. I'm not so sure whether the crippling of the country was because of Robert Mugabe or the sanctions that were imposed into the country by Britain and America and other allies. So it's another political history there that says at one point Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of Africa. We used to be the biggest, the best country. We used to be the best. We had the first television station in Southern Africa, in Africa, you know, and everything was beautiful until the land question came into play, and suddenly there were sanctions and things went haywire. So when you were chatting earlier about issues to do with policies, issues to do with research, issues to do with politics, it does affect the creative sector in a very sad way, really. But artists will always be resilient and they'll always find a way back into the gallery walls.
Yeah. Creativity is a very, very positive, like important thing, I think. Yeah. Kirstie, have you got any questions?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic the way that you're talking about it and your resilience to it. How does all of these issues actually affect you as an artist as well as you as a curator?
So as a curator, I'm employed by the government. So it's a national gallery, it's a government institution. And it's something that was inherited from the colonial period. So a lot of our people don't understand what is the role and what is the function. So in school, we do art, but you do art because it's part of the curriculum. You don't necessarily want to do it because it's associated with PE and art and sports. So it's something that is kind of like treated as extracurricular. As an artist, I think I've had my fair. The most fortunate thing about my practice is that I started practicing when Zimbabwe was still good. You know, 1995, everything was still okay. Tourists were flocking into the country. One was able to make artworks and begin to interact with the audiences in a very frank and open way. Now, after year 2000, when the land issue came into the place, tourism disappeared. And then so we lost a lot of visual artists because now they could not sell their works. Some curio shops and other small galleries closed down. The economy just took a nosedive. And that meant a few artists remained practicing. The only way we remained that we were able to become relevant and continue to practice was to go across the border, mostly to South Africa, Botswana and other countries, where you could just go there and do small exhibitions, but mostly just to sell your work. And then you come back home and life continues. So in 2011, so I joined the gallery in 2016 as an outreach officer. And then in 2011, I was then appointed as the assistant curator. Zimbabwe did not have a curatorial practice before then. So we've got 3 galleries, the National Gallery. The main one is in Harare, the capital city. The other one is in the eastern side of the country in Mutare, and then the Bulawayo Gallery. So the 3 galleries were basically spaces where collections, and by collections, I mean collections pre-independence in 1918. So most of the artworks that you see in the collection, for example, I don't know whether the internet will disappear. So these are some of the works that were done, you know, and these works basically were collected prior to 1980. They have no relevance to Zimbabweans or to most of the Black people, because I don't know whether it's the culture or tradition that Black people don't understand art or don't like art, or just it's not there, because we've been struggling to build audiences after the tourism disappeared. And you go into the communities and take your artworks to the community spaces and invite people to come and see an exhibition. The comments that you get there will give you a sense that maybe we are not either showing the right artwork, or we are not putting the message across properly, or art is just not for us. Then we began to do art appreciation programs to go into schools, because we realized that a certain generation will never understand this. So let's go younger and catch these young people in schools fairly, and the government responded and supported the art appreciation projects in schools, and then art was formally accepted as an examinable subject in schools. So the group that started starting in year 2001, the guys have grown up now and they are busy. They are the guys who are now pushing contemporary art practice in the country. And also with other artists that have also switched and understood that it's not all about creating work just to sell, but let's work or let's create artworks that engages our communities on topical subjects like, for example, climate change, on issues to do with environmental degradations, and something to do, as long as people get to understand what the role of the artist or the artwork is, then engagement can come in. Until government realize that, these artists are quite dangerous. I think, Sarah, you remember the case by Owen Masego that got the gallery shut for almost 5 years because the artist tackled a particular subject that had happened in this part of the country. Some call it genocide, but some call it some disturbances in Matabeleland. So until that time, the government started to say, so these artists need to be monitored because they have so much freedom of expression and controlled, and they have a potential to reach a wider audience and kind of like change the political narrative that politicians don't want to hear about. Mm-hmm. So it's been quite, it's a roller coaster really. But the beautiful thing about curatorial practice is that we then, as a gallery, decided to go and re-engage Zimbabwe with the international community. So the first project was to do the Zimbabwe pavilion in the Venice Biennale. And barely a month when I was appointed as an assistant curator, I was literally thrown into Venice, and you can imagine what happened there. But we did set up a pavilion and people loved Zimbabwean art. A lot of people were expecting to come to our pavilion and find stone sculpture, because that's what Zimbabwean art, if you Google Zimbabwean art, that's what you quickly get, stone sculpture. So we took some paintings and some very interesting conceptual work and video work there, and people were like, okay, so this is the new Zimbabwe. And from there, Zimbabwe has always been present in the Venice Pavilion, and that opened up the curatorial practice, and also artists began to understand how best they can move forward with their practice. And up to now, like I said, the president was here to officiate at a Bulawayo Arts Festival. A whole president came down to the city, and he was the guest of honor for the Bulawayo Arts Festival that has been running for the past couple of days.
It's amazing.
Fantastic.
I'm so pleased to see Bulawayo getting credit as well, because that hasn't always happened, has it? But it is the city of kings and queens. So,
of course. Well, I think it is so great, but I think coming into you were discussing earlier about issues to do with environment, climate change. Like many other African countries, these things are brought to us. I'm going to put it maybe in such a funny way. So when Al Gore or some BBC or CNN start to talk about climate change, it's like, what? What's that? You know, things don't come directly to the people, and people are still struggling to understand what climate change is all about until you talk about the differences in rain patterns, because Zimbabweans or many Africans do believe in the weather. You know, you look up into the sky, you can say a lot by just looking up into the sky. And when the weather patterns begin to change, the rain season began to change, communal farming began to change, people realize something is not right. And they begin to ask questions. That's when non-governmental organizations, because here, when a non-governmental organization says there is climate change, you know, people tend to listen because that information comes with food distribution. Mm-hmm. And it's a way that has been a technique that is now being used by most non-government organizations. You know, you talk about United Nations, your World Visions, and these other big NGOs. So as artists, we then began to run with that because one, it gives you enough funding to buy art materials, okay? So when the French embassy comes and say, can we do an exhibition about climate change? We say, no, but we will buy you some art materials and then you can exhibit. I say, yes. So that's how artists have been responding to some of these things because it needs a bit of an incentive to get people to stand up and come to listen. But after that, people go back to their home and say, God will take care of us. And we are such a religious continent or country, so much that some things, even with COVID, people still go and pray and don't put on a mask and say, God will take care of us. So we need that kind of, not vigorous education system, but we need to get people to understand things differently. It's much, much easier now because you can send something on WhatsApp and people will begin to see that, oh, so this young girl who goes around the world telling people about climate, who the hell is she, you know? She's such a young little girl. How can she tell me about climate change? I've been farming for the past 60 years. You know, these are some of the things that we need to project properly, nicely, that it's the cause, not necessarily about the young little girl. It's about what she believes and what she stands for. Be interested in what she's saying and make sure that you also share that with other members of your community so that we begin to talk about these things, because Zimbabwe and maybe other African countries were doing so well with managing their forests and environment. The only challenges that came with that is the politics and business. So the Chinese will come and start mining. And then there's a whole, they create jobs, you know, for the local communities. And when that happens, people go and get jobs and there's mining. Companies from, I don't know, Poland will come and start cutting good quality wood, you know, dark wood for furniture. And so you realize that the communities begin to see job opportunities and not necessarily realize that there is a huge deforestation taking place in their spaces. And then after 10 or 20 years, people realize that, we no longer have that tree because Zimbabweans use natural medicines. In the rural areas, there are no hospitals. Well, there are a few, but people still believe in traditional medicine, and trees and plants do play a major role in that.
Yeah, I think it's called climate justice, isn't it? It's kind of the balance in the inequalities between kind of continents and the impact that, say, the African continent is having in comparison to the rest, and the, you know, the resources that you may or may not have plays a huge part in it, and it changes perspective as well. It changes urgency and kind of, I know in particular areas of Africa, the main, you know, I mean, we all need to survive, obviously, but it's kind of much more acute in certain parts of Africa. So I suppose from that perspective, you can kind of see why why things happen the way they do. It's trying to almost equalize it in some way. But
exactly.
I think it's a huge compromise on behalf of the West to try. That's possible.
No, it's something that the people now have bought into, because like for the first time, I think the 2020 and 2021 rain season has been good, and people realized the harvest that they've never had for the past 10 years. So now people realize that, now we need to pay attention to these little girls when they talk, because we have seen the potential of what climate change can do. It affects our farming, and when it affects our farming, food security becomes a problem. And then when there is food insecurity in Africa, a war can just break up any second. So these are some of the things that people now begin to understand. So there are new drives now from the community. So they are now called the community projects that are called Campfire. So Campfire is responding to the hunting that has been taking place in the game parks, and it's empowering communities to avoid human-animal conflicts within those areas where the national parks are. Because of the deforestation and the hunger, people now move in closer to where the wild animals are. And when that happens, there's usually a conflict. And, you know, being people with very little, with a hunting history, a wild animal is food, and you eat food. Lions are bad for your livestock, you kill lions. There are some traditional ceremonies where young men must hunt and kill a lion in order for them to attain certain type of manhood. So these are some of the things that we say now, how do we switch from the traditional cultural practice and start to talk about issues of conservation and start to talk about issues of educating other communities about the importance of keeping this. But then you'd go to a community and you fail to respond to traditional leaders who say, look, young men, we are not interested in 300 elephants in our community. The reason why these safari operators want to keep 300 elephants is for tourism, isn't it? So how do we balance tourism and the survival of the people of that community? And so these are the conflicts that are ongoing now at the moment. Right now, there's a lot of talk about elephant culling in Zimbabwe. There are reports that there are more elephants than the country can keep. And then the organizations are saying, no, there are a lot of new homesteads that are being built, and they're encroaching into the animal spaces. And then, you know, it's a whole issue that is confused. But what I'm happy about is that through the arts, through the work that we're doing, artists, first of all, now understand that you cannot chop wood, right? You can maybe use naturally dead wood that is found in the bushes if at all you're going to do your artwork. Artists are beginning to do green art, responding to, you know, the environment. How best can I use charcoal? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? So now they are becoming to be conscious, and that is helping to spread the message more and more about conserving the environment. You know, more artworks are now using found objects. There are a lot of artworks now using recycled materials because there's a lot of objects that are being dumped out there. So people just begin to pick up and start creating crafts and artworks and utility furniture out of those material.
Yeah. So there was an Alfie Sulfie, which sounds a weird title, but there was meant to be a locomotive elephant being built out of recycled plastics a few years back. I don't know how's that going? Is it still kind of in the pipeline, or?
So the Chinese have come and they have offered the community lots of monies for the plastic. So now, the whole of idea of that project was then to kind of like, first of all, educate the people about the effects of environment. But then, like I said, business always comes in and kind of like changes everything. So now the streets are cleaner because there is a recycling plant that has been put in the country and is taking all the plastic and they are remolding that plastic into bricks and other materials. So that project kind of like died a natural death because basically it's either it did get the message out or business took over and this whole new recycling thing has kind of like taken over people's understanding.
Okay, so kind of, it's not entirely negative, but it's not entirely positive for creative.
It's not positive either.
Yeah, and so kind of environmentally around Bulawayo and the artists, are you finding the artists are kind of embracing this kind of whole concept more within the gallery?
Yes, like I said, now there's a lot of talk about green art. So people still don't understand what green art. The gallery won an award, I think last year or a year before, at the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair because of a project that we are running in Matopos. There's a place just south, 30 kilometers south of Bulawayo. So we've gone into the rural areas and we have kind of like revitalized a tradition of painting huts using natural pigments. Instead of building new brick, concrete, corrugated iron homes, we're encouraging people to go back and build homes using natural pigments that are available within their natural areas. So most of these, I think if you Google somewhere, My Beautiful Home Project, that's where they are using traditional pigments to paint their homes. So that's how we were then able to reach out to these communities using art as a medium. And those communities now have begun to branch and run other projects related to environment protection and other conservation areas to do with animals, and it's been spreading like that. So, but the city artist is still a long way. People know what green art is, but in terms of practice, it's become an issue. I think at the moment, people are worried about their bread and butter issues because the economy of the country is in shambles. So people still need to find their footing on putting food on the table. These other issues, as they say, will come later. But yes, as galleries, as government institutions, we are then pushing this message across so that people are aware and people can be cautious as they are buying. Do you buy a bottle? Do you go using your recycled bottle, or do you buy a can or a plastic soda? Or what kind of food are you now eating? How are you farming are you using pesticides or you're using natural insecticides? So these are some of the things that we are beginning to see being implemented within the communities. And the artists, without necessarily using art to be a medium of communication, but we have now partnered with different organizations. They come in, support the artists so that they can forget about the bread and butter issues, but focus on artwork development. So these are some of the partnerships that we have created. And they have seen it being something that they can do for quite a long time. They are now participating in other arts and it's called art and climate change projects that are taking place all over the world. And that's a good thing so far. And I think we are somewhere heading in that direction.
That's fantastic. Art holds so much power. It's actually incredible what it can do.
Yeah. We were just saying before, you were meant to come and do a master's over here, weren't you?
Yes, so like I said, I was just an artist, and I was only interested in art. And then during my work in Venice over the years, I've come across a lot of curators. Now I understand what curating is all about, all right? And something that I have been wanting to do for a while. So I've managed to start some programs within this gallery. One of it is the Resident Artist Development Program. So we're bringing in local artists for a residency, and then we're inviting international artists to come and spend some time with us on a residency. So it's kind of like something that kind of like stops young artists to want to just train and go to Europe. You know, it's like, I want to do art and go to Europe. What about doing art here? And then let's bring some guys from Europe to come here, and you guys can exchange ideas. So that has been working quite well. Like any other formal, industry or sector, there is now that need for formal training and formal qualifications. So I was accepted. In fact, I have been accepted at Kingston University to do an MA in curating contemporary art and design. But like if you are a foreign student, you need to fork out about what, 15K? And that has been a nightmare. So I've put out different calls out there for people to support, that cause, so that at least I'll be able to go and study there and do that MA. I think it's some form of validation. It's some form of confirmation. It's some form of networking. It enables you to see what other people are doing in different countries. So I've managed to put up a couple of exhibitions in and outside of the country. I've put up some shows in Aberdeen, in Morocco, in France. So these small projects that I've been doing have kind of like developed my curatorial practice so much that now I want to formally do curating instead of exhibition making, because a lot of what I've been doing has been exhibition making. I have realized that there are so much huge gaps. For example, I'm doing a research on art history of Zimbabwe. I want to find out exactly where did the Zimbabwean modern art practice, where did it start? How did it start? Obviously through missionaries, but before missionaries came into the country, what was art like? And so that's the research that I'm doing at the moment. But I want to do more publications. There are no writers in Zimbabwe, or there are a few, but it's difficult to find text or publications on Zimbabwean artists at the moment. So these are some of the things that I want to do, and formal studying can help me understand, the processes of writing, thought processes, and all that in a formal system.
Wow. Wow.
Hopefully I will enroll this September if COVID permits and finances come through.
Well, you never know if there's anybody rich listening in and they fancy kind of subsidizing Clifford. Feel free, please.
Absolutely. That will really be helpful, because it's not only a personal development, but it's also development for a curatorial practice in a country where a whole country has about, maybe I can count about 6 to 7, professionally trained curators. And well, 3 or 4 of them are not necessarily Zimbabwean by birth, but they are people who came into the country. So then to push a curatorial practice with such few curators and few galleries, it becomes a challenge. But now that the government seems to be softening on that area, unfortunately, there are no universities here that train curatorial practice. The only African country that does that is South Africa. But the curatorial practice there is not of a global approach. It's South African. And that makes it difficult then to find yourself in art fairs, in art biennales, and truly represent your country, yourself, and other people. So I've been deferring since, I know I've deferred for the past 4 or 5 years. And now I'm in my early 40s, I'm beginning to think, oh, this is the last time I'm going to attempt. And hopefully someone out there can chip in and support.
Yeah, fingers crossed, absolutely.
Yeah, if you have a link for any help, we'll put it on our platforms. You never know, whoever's listening will be able to support that, because it is so important. And for Zimbabwe, it's really important, because you're not just bringing art to Zimbabwe, you're also bringing knowledge and education, and you're helping. It's important, and it's commendable what you are doing.
Thank you.
And bringing Zimbabwe to the rest of the world as well,
Yeah.
which is just, yeah. And finally, do you have any advice to anybody who's like, who's really aspiring to be a curator, or who, you know, who wants to get into sculpting? Do you, you know, with your experience, do you have any nuggets to offer?
I'm not so sure whether that's, it's my bit of understanding and experience in curating is that, for example, there's a whole debate about curating by African curators for African art for African audiences. So most of the curators in the African continent, where I don't know how funny, I know now that I'm bringing this up. So most of the curators that are in Africa are not based in Africa, but they are Africans. So you speak of the known curators who are of African origin. So that makes our artists begin to ask questions about the curatorial approach. So what are you saying? You know, should we all stop and do some abstract or conceptual work? Should we stop doing realism? Or what are you saying, you curators? Well, who are you? Are you trying to bridge the gap between me and my client? What do you mean you want to research about my work? What do you mean you want to write about my work? My work speaks for itself, you know? So there are still those areas that a curatorial practice in the context of Africa or Zimbabwe needs to be implemented. For example, the Dakar Biennale in Senegal, they've managed to capture local audiences from Senegal to go into these spaces and support in Nigeria as well. But in Southern Africa, we still have that problem where galleries and maybe a few, we do have what they call craft shops, you know. There are still spaces that Zimbabweans find it difficult to go in because they are designed for a tourist market. So putting those spaces into a curatorial practice for audiences of any nature to come in and enjoy or consume those artworks, it becomes a bit of a challenge, but an exciting one, because it's a challenge that gives you more impetus to do more. And then also, I think as an artist, it's the one that is funding my life, you know. Salaries at the galleries are not quite exciting, especially in Zim. So I need to go into the studio, work, and then that's how Zimbabweans are juggling life. You know, you do a couple of jobs here in order to keep yourself interested. But then as a career choice, curating has enabled me then to find space between what I love, which is art, and what I want to do for my community, for my people, and for my country. Not only that, but how do I take Zimbabwean art and kind of like not change the narrative, because the publications that we have in our libraries talk about art, but not for a Zimbabwean audience. You will realize that people are writing for a European or an American audience. So it does not necessarily make sense for someone in Zimbabwe to understand that text. So those are some of the narratives that we want to put in the Zimbabwean context so that our people can understand that, so this is art, and this is what art does, and this is what art can do. Is it colors? Is it the shapes? Is it different elements of art that should trigger a sense of love, a sense of happiness, etc.? But so far we are finding that art being taken into the communities and people are now coming into the gallery spaces and enjoying art. And that's a good thing, curatorially. But I still have a lot more to do with publication, because that's a missing gap. The element that I spoke earlier about being able to take art into the schools, one of the gaps that we realized that there was very little content about the Zimbabwean artists. So imagine a Zimbabwean grade 6 still learning about Picasso as the heroes. What about, who are your Zimbabwean artists? Who are your Zimbabwean heroes that you need to know and talk about? We talk about Tapuma Gutsa. Who's Tapuma Gutsa? What has Tapuma Gutsa done for the Zimbabwean art? So these are the narratives that we're trying to bring in. So our education system is migrated from we had an education system similar to the UK, you know, the O levels and the A levels, and now Zimbabwe has adopted another education system that is more rooted on the African history. And that's what, as a curator, I would love to find space in between those and kind of like put on through a practice that our people can understand, Zimbabweans and those that are coming into the country.
You're so fantastic. So I think we were going to kind of go on to kind of discuss bits of work that we've done that's been connected with the environment and had that kind of eco theme. So I don't know whether you want to start us off, whether you have any pictures of your work or kind of memories of exhibitions that have been about on that theme.
So I did 2 shows to do with that. So we went to a landfill as a group of artists, and we wanted to find objects that we were going to do as recycled art materials. So we did that successfully in terms of collecting the art materials. But then it's a very thin line between garbage and found objects, you know. So a lot of artists collected a lot of junk, and it didn't take off quite very well. But I'm so sorry about that. I'm just using somebody else's laptop at the moment. So we couldn't it didn't take off in the way maybe that I expected because of my international visiting experience, you know. But locals found it quite interesting because you guys are picking up junk and you are saying you're creating works of art out of it, you know. So it's like repurposing garbage back into life again by creating these works. Personally, I have also been trying to do works using quite locally, you know, local materials, you know, your plastic, your furniture that has been broken and thrown away. So you repurpose that using power tools and kind of like change that. So in the next 6 days, from 6 to 12 June, it's winter. So we will be going out for 7 days as about 25 artists from Bulawayo for an arts, and our theme, coincidentally, will be climate change. I wish then this talk came after that, because I would have had quite good images and everything to do with that. But this helps me basically to then project a certain idea through the artist so that we can work. So we're going out in Matopos and in a place called Kami, where we'll be camping there, and then we'll be doing some artworks with the theme of climate change. Fortunately, the ministry has set up a department that is to deal specifically with climate change issues, and that department is then putting together resources that can then support art development around climate change. And then, so we're getting into that drive at the moment, and then we are yet to see the positive and good results out of it.
I wish I could join you.
Yeah, you should come back.
One day. Yeah. Kirstie, would you like to tell us a bit about your work?
Yeah, I'll just bring up the PowerPoint. Let's quickly go slideshow. There we go. So, oh, I've put this in another order, I think. There we go. We found it. One of the artworks I really wanted to show was an installation series that I did. It was called Being. And what it was all of it was found or reused materials: wood, chicken wire, hessian, silk, clay. The only thing that wasn't found and reused was the glazes, but it's a communal one, so I thought that was all okay. And afterwards, all of the material was given away third hand at that point, and just not thrown away. None of it ended up in the skips. It's all gone to good homes. And the whole idea of this was the idea of bringing a point to the trees and the places that we live in right now, and that it's really deteriorating, and the way that materials were put together, the shapes and bends that I found in the natural environment. I just wanted to exaggerate those and let them sag in their own way, so people can see that the trees really are dying, but we can't live without them. They're getting used for things we don't need and chopped down unnecessarily, and environments destroyed unnecessarily, just because we can. But there are better alternatives. But yeah, that was my main idea around this artwork. And it literally, I think I made about 12 to 15 of these Hessian sculptures, all arranged in different ways. There was 5 tissue paper drawings with ink on from some of the forms that I made there, as well as there was about 25 ceramic pieces that were a mix between glazed and unglazed, it was grey clay or red clay, which was really interesting to see the differences of. Yeah, so that's my little showcase. Sarah, did you want to talk about yours?
Sure. So this, I was actually going to talk about subjects and entities, which was a collective exhibition, wasn't it? That it was full of assemblages and installations made from found and repurposed materials, which was really good fun, and it kind of gave loads of scope of making statements about the current economic situation, you know, the way people kind of were made to live or had to live in Bulawayo, you know, without the power, without, you know, with the disrupted weather systems, access to food. And yeah, that was a really interesting exhibition to partake in. This, however, it still got that eco theme. This was my emergence exhibition, which again I did in Bulawayo with the help of Clifford, and it was called Emergence, and it was based on personal empowerment, and I used the theme of the Commodore butterfly, which is a native butterfly of Zimbabwe, and I just thought that element and that symbolic theme, you know, of kind of growth and personal development and kind of finding one's voice and fighting for one's rights, which you know, as we've kind of discussed, there's still an awful lot of suppression around, which is so sad, but it's kind of, obviously I don't live there permanently, and I was coming in as an outsider, you know, and I suppose that element of being a therapist kicked in as well, and just kind of being there long enough to kind of get an idea of what's going on, but not being a passing tourist. It gave me an opportunity to investigate the themes more so. But the sustainable element, basically I arrived with so little. I think I had a backpack with me and a pan of watercolors and that was it. So actually when I started to put this exhibition together, I had to be so much more innovative and literally go out and find things to make an exhibition out of. And part of that was, you know, finding bits of scrap. In fact, I think I picked up a broken mirror off the side of the road at one point and figured it reminded me so much of the veins of butterfly wings, and that kind of corresponded obviously with the Commodore butterfly, and bits of broken glass, bits of refuse, MDF. There was all kinds of elements to this exhibition. So yeah, it was kind of another one of them repurposed and recycled exhibitions, which was really fun, really pushed me. It was totally unlike anything I'd done before. So yeah, it was really good fun. And I had such a blast at the gallery, and there's such amazing people there. And, you know, they were so helpful and so friendly, and just the whole experience was amazing.
Fantastic. I find this one so interesting. Just the idea that you've had to find all of these amazing objects and make something out of them. What you found, well, here you'd be lucky to find on the end of the street. I don't really know what it'd be like there, but it's phenomenal how you've managed to find these pieces.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah. Shall we move on to the art challenge? The last 5 minutes for the art challenge.
You fancy the art challenge, Clifford?
Yes.
You got your pen and paper?
Okay, yeah. So let me get one.
And the pinwheel is still broken. It will be fixed for next week. What sort of challenge would you like to do this week?
Oh, I don't know.
We could do ourselves as animals, or as a mythical creature, or
remember, this is gonna be drawn as badly as you possibly can.
As badly as you can.
Guys, what animal would you be?
What animal would you be? I like that one. Sarah, have you got a bit of music this time for a minute or two while we draw?
I do. Give me 2 ticks. I hope it plays better this week. So
there you go. Episode 5 is the charm.
Hang on. Yes, technical glitches all around. Let's turn it up so you can actually hear it. I will give you a brief on this. So this is called Arrival of the Birds by Cinematic Orchestra. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever heard. And I just thought it would be quite fitting because in that kind of, you know, about World Environment Day and the kind of the natural world. So yeah, that's why I chose it. I hope it doesn't come up with an advert. Oh, there you go.
Fab. Right. What animal would I be?
I almost need to do this close out.
I think I'm done.
I'm done.
I think as Clifford's our guest, I think he should go first at showing us who we would be as an animal.
So, well, as an animal, it's very difficult with so many animals in Africa. So this is my...
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so sometimes you feel like being a giraffe to see everything out there and then have that privilege, you know, of seeing things before all these other people see. But also there's an element of being what is that? A turtle? Tortoise, yeah. You know, a tortoise, and being that comfortable. When things go haywire, you just retreat back into the comfort zone and try to enjoy the world. So if there's a way of becoming a combined of the two, yeah, and then with a bit of a zebra neck there somehow.
I love the giraffe. Apparently it's quite symbolic of changing your perspective, because they're so cool. They perspective from everybody else.
Exactly.
Much more creative than mine.
Okay.
Go on, Sarah, you show yours.
Okay. I need you to make your noise.
Which one? Pawoo, pawoo.
True. So mine is, I'm going to have the same problem again. Hang on.
Okay, we've got to go backwards, I think.
No, gradually fading out.
Well, I like it.
One day.
It's a lovely wire you drew.
Yeah, you like it. So I chose the elephant because, you know, elephants just have my heart, and it's the national emblem of Bulawayo, also the emblem of strong people, resilient people. So yeah, posted on social media because obviously it's just not going to play ball.
If you want to see what Sarah's done, head over to our Instagram. There we go.
Oh, yes.
I love the ears.
It's like me as well.
Nice, beautiful.
Okay. I don't know what noise these make. I'm not even going to attempt it. That would be on the internet forever. My one this week, I would love to be a narwhal.
Oh yeah.
That is the size I want to be compared to a boat. Chunky and funky.
I love that.
And I've entitled it Yummy because there's loads of fish.
Beautiful stuff. Oh yeah. And the unicorn.
Well, thank you so much, Clifford, for being here today. Just a massive thank you. You are fantastic and you're inspirational. Yeah.
It's been so lovely here to catch up as well. We must make a point of this more often.
Absolutely, I would love to. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks so much, Kirstie. It's always beautiful to exchange ideas, to talk to people. It's what drives us all the time, you know. The more you talk, the more you learn, and the more you're able to put it out there. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Very well. Very welcome. And fingers crossed for the fundraising as well. We'd love to see you go on that qualification. It's so important to you and so important to the art sector as well. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Definitely. Thank you.
And thank you so much to everyone who's come along tonight. It will also be available on other platforms such as YouTube, podcast, and Google Podcasts. And make sure to tune in next week where we'll be going live again via Zoom 7 till 8. So we'll see you all next week.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.